All right, it looks like we are live here Sunday, DFS NASCAR Raceday show for the Instacart 500 at Phoenix International Raceway. Gonna wait for a few people to get on. I'm gonna share the link here, so bear with me if you're just logging on here. Wait for a few more people. Then we are going to talk some DFS NASCAR, DraftKings, FanDuel, Prize Picks, outright bets for today, like the race winners. We're gonna talk lots of that. So if you got any questions, fire them away in the chat here. I will try and get to every single question. For today, like I said, I am just going to share this here. Make sure we get everybody in here. Got a funny story to start the day, actually. I was planning on doing this show with Dane today, as we usually do on Sundays. He had asked me if we could do a little bit earlier today, 10 Eastern, his time, which is his time. He's in the Eastern time zone. I'm in the, well, that's a funny story. In Saskatchewan here, we don't change time zones. So what happened was I thought it was going to be 9 o'clock my time, but the time changed at midnight last night. Just sorry, typing here. Time changed last night. So unfortunately, that was 8 o'clock my time this morning. Didn't realize that till this morning. So unfortunately, Dane's gone. So you just get me today. I am live. Almost got it shared on all the platforms. Then we'll talk some NASCAR. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing to start the season? Even, betting, DFS, just enjoying the racing. One thing that I absolutely love here early in the season is the parity. Me and Dane talked about it last week, how the field kind of went from about 10 drivers, 8 to 10 drivers that could win every single week to all of a sudden we have like 15 to 20. So it's been an exciting season in that sense, 100%. Almost done here. Post. This is the longest part because I can't actually share the show. At least I haven't figured out how to get all this in here and look right. Share the show before it starts so that I don't have to do this live on the air. But it's riveting content here. So I appreciate y'all sticking around while I get this started, get this going. I see we got like 7 or 8 people on here now, so that's awesome. Looks like the quality's good. Working with some new internet. Just absolutely love the Starlink so far. Biggest thing is like me and Dane, we recorded a PGA video Monday night. We do it every Monday night. It's about an hour long. It takes me 2.5 hours to upload that sucker to YouTube. This past week, once I was done and got Starlink hooked up on Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, I decided to upload that same video again just to test it out. It uploaded in 5 minutes. 2.5 hours to 5 minutes. So we're going to see a lot more videos, pre-recorded preview videos, live videos, quick hit picks videos during the day when I can. So I'm just trying to get all that sorted out. As you can see, I've got sponsors up here. These are the templates I'm working with a program like OBS Studios. So I'm just kind of learning it. It's quite advanced, but I really like what I can get on here with like the Phoenix average finish ticker at the bottom. If you want to check that out, that's the drivers' last 5 races here at Phoenix and their average finish, the top 10 drivers. And then we've got the sponsors over here. We'll talk about them a little bit while a few more people are jumping on. First of all, got DFSR. I'm not doing an article right now. I'll probably get to that. Just we're covering a lot of sports this season. It kind of ended last season, like when COVID came back and all the sports kind of came back all at the same time. I kind of lost track with the article, but I am doing a lot of content with the sheet. You can get that sheet over at dfsr.com. You can grab it over at rotopros.com with your membership over there. That sheet is available weekly. And we have Dane and myself, coaches, in there to help you out. Kenny is in there as well. He plays a lot of multi-enter NASCAR, and he is a absolute whiz in terms of multi-enter construction, how to go about building with cores. I've learned a lot from what I do with my 20 max builds and stuff like that from him. So definitely going that route. And then you can go over to Patreon, patreon.com/JagerBombs, $5 per sport, $10 for all sports. and that gives you access to my Slack channel, gives you access to the cheat sheet, as well as some other stuff that I provide in there as well. Hello, everyone. I'll just type in the chat here. If you guys want to fire off, who's your favorite driver today? We've got a few more people watching now. Happy race day. I'm also going to share Dane's article here. He wasn't able to join me. For anyone that's just joining, looking for Dane, where's Dane's face? Unfortunately, he's not here today. I got some of his takes. Definitely go over his article. We're kind of on the same page here today. So we're going to talk some Phoenix. We got a few more people in here now. Looks like we got about 13, 14. So I'm going to just jump over here quickly, talked about some sponsors. I'm going to go over to the screen share side and make sure it's working before I flip over to it. And there we go. First of all, I want to look at, let's just look at some season stats, first of all. And what I like about this season, like I said, is the parity. Obvious Kyle Busch fan wearing Kyle Busch hat. It's been pretty disappointing. Haven't seen him win in quite a while. Playoffs last year, but he's not looking like his old dominant self. A lot of it is, the rules package that NASCAR has been kind of tweaking year in, year out, here and there for like, I don't know, it seems like 5-10 years. This is kind of what they were aiming for, in my opinion, is the cars are closer, so it does take away, your elite wheelmen. It does take them away and bring everyone a little bit closer together. But from a competition standpoint, watching it on TV, I really enjoy that. Even if my driver isn't dominating and winning 5 to 8 races a year, like he has in the past, just because, let's look at the winners here. I'm just going to go and sort. We had Michael McDowell at the 500, Christopher Bell, William Byron, and Kyle Larson. Well, Kyle Larson is someone who, before, going on his suspension last year was someone we thought of as winning, but he got his first win in only his 4th race back. He's got 3 top 10s in 4 races since returning, jumping into that number 5 for Hendrick. So he's been very strong, but like William Byron is someone we usually see scraping, at the end of the season, going into that Daytona race, the last race of the regular season. He's one that we normally see looking for points to try and get into playoffs. Same with Christopher Bell, same with even Michael McDowell. They're all kind of they can get a win. Byron, I would be at the top of that list for me, but the other two, like Bell and McDowell, are drivers who, Bell's in the 20 now. He's in stronger equipment, so definitely look for him to win. But I didn't see it coming this early. McDowell, he got the Daytona 500 win, so we got that out of the way. The 2 Daytona races and the Talladega race before the playoffs. 3 great opportunities for some of these teams, but that puts a lot of pressure on guys like Hamlin, Harvick, Keselowski, Truex, Logano, Elliott, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman. These guys that we normally see, and we're going to see these guys have wins, but it gives every week now when we see these drivers who possibly aren't multi-win kind of guys, it puts a lot of pressure on the other teams who don't have wins yet, and I think that's just makes it even more exciting. We even see the racing at the ends of stages. These points are absolutely huge, and they become more huge each and every week. So seeing them race at the end of these stages has been just absolutely awesome. That's kind of my take on the season so far. Going to the main page of the cheat sheet here, and I'm just going to keep flipping back and forth. We do have some comments here. Brad Keselowski, Bergie, thanks for joining. Liz, happy Sunday. Ryan Newman, nice to see you again, bud. Yeah, let's get it today for sure. Almirola needs to cut a break today. Yeah, he's it hasn't been a great start for him to the season, but I definitely like him. I guess let's talk about him first. In terms of strategy, even that kind of just rolls me right into what my strategy kind of is today, and I'm looking a lot at more balanced route, to be honest with you. Last week I took a stand. I faded Harvick starting from the pole. He didn't even lead the first lap, so that was awesome. I was super happy right away. And then he had a great finish, or I don't want to say a great finish, but let's just jump over to the season stats here again. Just look at it. Yeah, 20th. Sorry about that. It was not a great finish. It was a terrible day for Harvick. It hasn't been, I guess, top 5s in 2 of the 3, 6th place at Daytona road course, but 3 different track types. It was nice to see him get on track at Homestead, but he struggled last week, and it kind of goes into what we talked about with, I mentioned it on last week's show, where these drivers with these new rules, these new COVID rules, we'll call them, with no qualifying, no practice, puts the driver on the pole. Doesn't mean he's the fastest driver. I mean, when we have practice, like especially, even Phoenix last year when we had practice, it was the last race. Takes me back. This Sunday last year I was in the Airbnb doing the live show, getting ready to go to the racetrack and watch the race. Little did I know it was going to be the last like sellout race with fans that you might see in a couple of years, and we're still not back to full capacity, and I can't even get down to Phoenix. I'm supposed to be there this week, but Canada won't let me out of the country. So, but going back to Phoenix here, and going back to last week, Harvick didn't dominate from the pole, and now this week we get him kind of where we want him. We get him at a track where he's been really good, as you can see here, 7th, 2nd, 5th, like top 10s in each of his last 10 races, 2 wins. Getting a bit ago, he's got 9 career wins here. Leads all drivers here, a ton of laps led. He just hasn't been the same dominant Harvick. And at the most expensive driver, that puts him, we need about 55 to 60 points out of him. Even from 18th, I'm going to keep jumping back and forth from the matrix. If you got questions about how I use the matrix, how I use anything, just let me know and I'll go into it. I'm not going to try and explain it each and every week unless someone asks for it. So if you're wondering what I'm looking at, just let me know and I'll go look at it. So Harvick starting 18th. We're looking for, when I bring up, let me get the exact number for you instead of just kind of taking a guess. So I take 11.9. We want 5x out of our drivers for the most part. There's quite a few laps here, 312. So we're looking for about 5x for sure out of guys. We need 59.5 points out of Harvick to get there. Well, that's a win. We need him to win or second. Even with, that's if he doesn't lead any laps. I don't see dominators. That's going to take me into my next thing here in a second. But I don't see him dominating any laps. So that puts him at, just to get 5x, that puts him needing a win. That is risky. I mean, his odds to win, let's just go over. I use Cool Bet, and I'm going to be talking about some bets that I'm possibly looking at here today. Let's see if I can find it here. NASCAR Cup Series. Instacart 500. So he's 6.5 to 1 to win, second best odds. But if he doesn't lead any laps, he needs that win to hit value, or I know it seems enticing that he's the only guy starting outside the top 10 in the top 9 drivers in pricing, but it's just the fact that I see, let's go down and look at Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex. I have Denny Hamlin. By the way, yesterday they did the inspection. Kyle Larson is going to the back. He keeps his starting position for fantasy. So he keeps that second place starting position. So that is an auto fade for me because he is starting at the back on one of the toughest tracks to pass. So that's going to be a fade. I don't see him leading any laps. It's going to be tough for him to even get inside the top 5 starting from the back. I can see it. I can definitely see a top 5 out of Larson, but I don't see him being a dominant car today. With that said, 9 times 5, 45. So he needs about 46 points. That's the win. You need the win just to scrape a 5x out of him if he doesn't lead any laps. So again, I'm going to have a lot of bold calls. It was called crazy last week, so you can call me crazy again this week. But I'm fading Larson now. I know he's going to be low owned. He's going to be low owned for a reason because he needs to get up front on one of the toughest tracks to pass and get like 50. Let's go. If we give him 50 laps led, and let's say he's still fast and puts up 30 fast laps, 72. So then we're kind of in the range of we need a top 10 finish out of him. Well, that's great, but I don't see 50 laps led coming out of a car that's going to be starting at the back and having to come through, especially stage 1, stage 2. I could see maybe 10 to 20 if he was to come up and win the race at the end. Let's give him 20 and 20 here. That puts him at 60. Then you're needing, like, just for 5x, you're needing like a 5th or 6th place finish kind of in there. And I just don't see it. So that's another fade for me today in my player pool for my 20 max. And I'm playing 20 max every single week for this. So, okay, one other thing I wanted to go over before I start answering questions on these other guys here. Haha. Yeah, we have a Ryan Newman in chat, and he likes to check in before the race, see what's happening before he gets on, see if I'm picking him. I think he's just checking in to see if I'm picking him. But, okay, so one thing I'm going to look at in terms of figuring out every single week on whatever track you're on, do we want dominator points? Do we want place differential? What kind of core are we building? How many dominators do we want? So what I do, first of all, in my research, once I get the sheet fully up and running, is I go to the Phoenix track history, last 10, very detailed here of all the different stats for all of the last 10 races at this track. Keep in mind the packages change, so each week we kind of narrow it down a little bit. So last year we had the 2019 and 2020 is kind of what I'm looking at. We go back to 2018. That's where, or sorry, I think it was the 2017 second race. I'd have to go back and check, but where they changed the track at Phoenix to the start finish line, kind of it was turn. Let me go back here and think. It was turn 2, and now it's, I guess, turn 4 at that start finish line. So it's a little bit different there, but the new rules package and stuff. But generally, I'm going to be looking at this race last year for the most comparable, simply because the first race had practice and qualifying. The championship race last year, where Elliott won from the pole, led 153 laps, that race had no practice or qualifying. It was based off of it's a little bit different formula last year versus this year. They did tweak that a little bit, but it's still a formula. But as you can see, even with that, like we talked about last week, starting from the pole with Harvick and how I was fading him because there isn't a lot of laps led, Elliott absolutely dominated here. Logano from second led 125 laps. So then what I do is not just look at that data, I look at quality passes versus other tracks. And I am in the works of building a full track history database so you can compare track to track how many quality passes happen on each and every track divided by laps to kind of give you it's really to give you a look at what tracks are easier to pass on, which is going to also, for DFS, point us in the direction of which ones dominators are more important, which ones we can look at more place differential, that sort of thing. So then I can scroll down to the bottom here and correlation, and this is just a simple correlation between starting position and finishing position. Correlation, for anyone new to correlation, is a -1 to +1 number. -1 meaning the most negative correlation possible. Water and electricity, that's a good one. Don't throw your hair dryers in the tub kind of thing, doesn't really work out. And then +1 would be like the most correlation, like peanut butter and jelly kind of thing. So last year, as you can see, 0.813 correlation, absolutely crazy high correlation here. 5 drivers that finished top 10 started top 5. 8 of the top 10 drivers, 8 of the top 10 finishers started top 15, and you can track that here as well. You can look at drivers that led 20, 50, and 100 plus, and you can go through the last 10 races. I've got all that data. So we've got 0.642 in the first race last year. That was with qualifying. So those numbers being swapped seems a little bit crazy, but hey, but what we notice going year to year to year with this track is that the top 5 drivers, your dominators, are coming from the top 5 starting positions. There's a high correlation from start to finish. It's a hard track to pass on. Quality passes are down. Look at this race specifically. No driver had over 40 quality passes. Last week at Vegas, we had, I believe, one driver have 60 and 8 drivers have over 40 quality passes. There's more laps here. I think we were 267 last week in terms of laps in the total race. So there's more laps here and less quality passing, which is expected. We've got a short flat track. I split my track types up a little bit different, and I know I could probably go a little bit deeper into this. Definitely check out some stuff that some of my patrons are sharing over on Patreon. It's absolutely amazing what these guys are putting together, just taking some of my data and then just crunching their own numbers. It's been absolutely amazing, some of the data and correlation stuff they've been coming up with. But for myself, the track that I look at in terms of short flat are 1 mile or less and flat, 16-degree banking or less. So we've got Phoenix, Martinsville, Richmond, New Hampshire, and I said Phoenix, I think. Yeah, Phoenix right there. So that's what I'm looking at. And that's something that we see with these tracks is they're hard to pass on. So that's one thing that really correlates well with these outside, that they are all short tracks. They sometimes don't consider Phoenix a short track, but I definitely put it in that category of short flat. All right, to look at some questions now. I'm going to flip back to the sheet here. Morning, Mike. How's it going today, buddy? Kenny, thanks for joining. Casey, bud, how's it going? Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining, everyone. Appreciate it. Make sure to like the video. That really helps, the algorithm. It really helps them push up the video. We get a lot of, more views, commenting, being active, asking questions. I really appreciate you all. That's why I do this. Again, missing Dane today because I forgot about the time change, which we don't do in Saskatchewan. So here I am solo today. So fire off as many questions as you can, because eventually I'm going to run out of things to say. My wife will argue otherwise, that I always say this is going to be a half an hour show, and it's like 58 minutes every single week. The last one I was going to fade, yeah, Casey, I was looking at, first of all, Kevin Harvick, even though he's starting 18th, if he doesn't get any laps led, he at 11.9 at his price tag, he's going to need that win just to scrape out a 5x performance, and that's kind of like a floor performance. And then Kyle Larson is now going to the back. um, him and Byron and Cody Ware, I believe, are the three that are going to the back today. Starting from the back, they keep their starting position for fantasy, because the going to the back after qualifying, you keep your starting position. You know, that's NASCAR rules. But for fantasy, they start from the back. So if they go back and start 38th, Kyle Larson starts 38th today. He starts with a negative 36 place differential. Keep that in mind. I had a lot of people wondering and asking questions why they're starting with negative points last week with the guys that went to the back. That's because anytime after the qualifying is set, that a driver goes to the back with an engine change, or they swap out a mechanical part, or whatever the case may be, they fail inspection 2 times, 3 times. They keep their starting position for fantasy, but they start from the rear. So on pace laps, when they're out there following the pace car at the start of the race, those cars go to the back. But when they start out behind that pace car, they will be in their original starting positions. That's just the way NASCAR works. So keep that in mind for DFS. That Kyle Larson, long story short here again, Kyle Larson's a fade for me, because I don't see him getting all the way through the pack and having enough time to get enough dominator points to make up for that price tag, which we're looking for. Just going to bring up 9.6 times 5. Like minimum, we need 48 points out of him. If he doesn't lead any laps or get any fast laps, which I don't quite see, I could see him getting some fast laps for sure, but even like 20 fast laps kind of puts him right in that a little over 5x for the win, and we need a third place finish out of him just to hit 5x. So there's a lot of risk involved with Kyle Larson, because he's starting from the rear. There's a lot of risk involved, in my opinion, with Harvick, because he hasn't been the same dominator here. He hasn't been the same dominator overall, leading those 100 plus laps like we have seen in past years. Even starting 18th, like I talked about. So those are two of my fades in the top tier in my player pool personally. Thoughts on McDowell? I haven't. Let's go down here. So McDowell, I'm on the matrix here. First of all, actually, I wanted to answer Bergie 50 here, favorite dominator. Denny Hamlin now moves up. Kyle Larson was, if he was starting second. Denny Hamlin is now my favorite dominator over Keselowski. So Keselowski is a bit of a fade, probably going to be GPP only for me. I don't see him leading the bunch of laps. I see Hamlin getting out in front and leading these laps today. I believe Hamlin's going to have sort of a car like we've seen the second race. I'm just going to search his name so it's easier just to pop up here on the screen. So he started fourth, finished fourth at the championship race last year. He wasn't a dominator. He had 39 fast laps. So he had a fast car, and he ran top 3 all day long. So he was right up there in the championship race. Started third, finished 20th last year. So, he got in some trouble early on last year. It's a first race. But then in 2019, the second race here, this was before it was the championship race. It was the race before the championship race. He started third and absolutely dominated that race, 100 fast laps, which is usually we see about, if whatever a driver leads in terms of laps led, we usually see about 50-60% of that in terms of fast laps. So that's where I get my projections on the matrix from. But Hamlin here started third, led 142, 99 fast laps. I don't see him completely dominating like that, but I see him having a better chance of being that dominator than Keselowski, mainly because of the form. If we go look at Hamlin, no, he has not. Let's go and sort here by average finish on the season. 5.8 average finish. So 4th, 11th, 3rd, and 5th. I know these are Daytona. One's a road course, one's a super speedway, but he's been fast all year, no matter what track they've gone to. He's been good here. Like I said, he's been a dominator 3 races ago here. Going back and just looking at the main page, and what really stands out the most for me, especially on DraftKings, is he's 7th in price. 7th in price with the chance to be a complete dominator. As you can see, I've got him at 122, and I just kind of split my projected laps led up into my top 4 dominators. Obviously, my top 2, Truex and Denny, and then Logano and Elliott, I think, have a good chance too. Any of those 4 those are my 4 favorite, but Denny would be my favorite. And if he leads 122, he could be 100 plus here. So we're looking at a good return at a price for him if he becomes a dominator, either of these guys, for their price. And then a little bit more risk with these guys being in the 11K range in dominators. So that's kind of why I don't, that's not why I have them for less, but that's why I like Truex and Hamlin a little bit better for dominators, is the discount and more points per dollar that you get out of them. So that covers that. And then Ellis, thanks for joining today. Haven't talked to you in a while. How's things? Um, Thoughts on McDowell sliding down here, starting 16th. We need 30 points out of him. So that kind of puts him, we need a top 15 finish. So we need him to finish ahead of where he was. And he's been fast. Let's go look at season stats first of all before we go and look at it. His second best average finish, 17th, 6th, 8th, and 1st. So again, we're kind of toss out these first two, which were absolutely incredible. Kind of that same kind of form and consistency as Hamlin has given us. Definitely not as good of equipment though. 17th last week, was a little disappointed at the end, but he was running a little bit better than that early on in the race, early stages. So let's go look at Phoenix now for him. Yeah, that's the problem, is the track history here for him. 2 16th place finishes where he has started only twice in the last 10 races. Other than that, it's been outside the top 20, 4 times outside the top 30. Very, very risky with him starting 16th. And in terms of value, if you just want to jump down, like I'm going to have a lot of exposure. I talked about in the opening, talked about going a little bit more balanced with my builds. I think you can start with like a Denny and Truex here, and I'm actually just going to plug that in and just see what we have left. Gives you 7,500 left over. So this is kind of how I go about building my initial core and seeing what direction I'm going to go with my main core. And sometimes with my main core, I'll go up to as many as 10 lineups of my 20 with my main core of 3 or 4 drivers, depending on how much I like them. So I like Almirola too. I mentioned I was going to talk about him. Even though he's had a rough start to the season, I think he's going to be super high owned, probably top 3 ownership, just because of his starting position 32nd and his track history. Top 15 here in 5 of his last 6, and top 10s in 5 of those races. So he's got a really good track record on the short flat tracks as well. 9 top 10s, 9 top 20s, 6 top 10s, 1 top 5 in his last 13 short flat races. And that price tag at 9K, we need 45 points out of him. That takes us to a 15th place finish. Like I said, he's done that in 6 of his last 7 races here. Start in 32nd. I think we have to go there, especially on FanDuel at 8K. That's like a gimme pick. I know he could get in a crash. Anything can happen, but not locking him in with, 60, 70% of the field in cash games, probably 40, 50% of the field in GPPs, especially on FanDuel, I think is a little crazy, especially considering, his price starting 32nd. He probably, to not garner that kind of ownership, should be in the 10K range. And then I think he would probably be a little bit lower owned, but he's going to be chalkier, especially on FanDuel, like I said. So if you put in Truex and Hamlin and Almirola, you still have a 7K average. So then that kind of takes me down which value plays really stand out down here. And the ones that stand out to me right away, let's look at Ryan Newman. There, shout out in chat there, Ryan Newman. There you go, buddy. I like Ryan Newman just simply because, well, first of all, he's a good guy. He's always in chat. He joins the shows, but he's got good course history here, or track history, thinking golf on the mind. But he started 19th, so that maybe is a little bit risky for some, but that takes me over. I'm kind of looking at like a 15th to 20th place finish. That's kind of where I've got him on these short flat tracks. That's kind of where I've got him at Phoenix. And at that 66K, 66 price tag, that gives him exactly, we're looking for about 33 points to not really kill us, to give us that 5x return. That is like a 15th place finish. That's kind of right where I've got him, 15th to 20th. So I mean, there is a little bit of risk there at that price. I like him a little bit more on FanDuel, but again, we don't really need to go there on FanDuel this low, just simply because in cash games, at least, if you're going that route, much easier to do on FanDuel with prices like I told you about with Almirola, even to Benedetto there. So keep that in mind. But for DK, I don't mind Newman. It seems like he's got a very solid floor. He's not going to kill you, but I don't think there's a lot of upside there. For that, I'm going down a little bit. Sorry about that. Had a little kick out, so I just stopped talking there as I seen that come along. I hope you didn't miss at the end there, but I was just talking about Ryan Newman, so I think I got all that out. So I will move on now to my other value plays. I talked about McDowell. Very much scares me. Starting 16th. If he was starting, even outside the top 20, I would consider it kind of like Newman with the high floor thing that we talked about. But GPP, I think you could go that route for sure, just with how he's been running this season. But for safety, I definitely wouldn't be going there myself. The guys that I do like down here, I'm just going to go and take a peek. Again, I'm going to agree with Dane. We're on the same page with Suarez and Alfredo. Those are two guys that we're looking at. I'm just going to jump over. Well, first of all, let's look at them here. Alfredo hasn't raced here before, so one thing I wanted to look at, and I pulled up today, was looking at some Xfinity stuff, and I spelled his name wrong. He doesn't have any experience here in Xfinity either, but starting 28th and 27th, those two make a lot of sense. I think a lot of people up here, looking at Chastain and Custer again, they're in better cars. We talked about that last week, but the discount under 6K on DraftKings for these guys, 4,500, 3,500 on FanDuel, starting 27th, 28th. Suarez has been solid this season. Just go search him here and look at him on the season stats. 2 top 20s in his 4 races, 26th, 15th, 16th, 36th at Daytona in the crash. So take that out. He's got some solid finishes here, road course and 2 intermediate tracks. We go look at, Phoenix. He's been really good in the desert. They talked about that a little bit on the Xfinity broadcast. He was on there yesterday. Had a rough time here in the championship race last year, but, I've kind of on the matrix, we're looking at a 30-point return out of him for that 5X, and that's a 20th place finish. I think that's a solid. I think that's totally doable for him. I like Suarez a little more than Alfredo. Alfredo maybe like an ownership pivot off of Suarez, who I think is going to take on some ownership just because he's had a solid start to the year. He's had some success here at Phoenix. Even looking at the last 13 short flat tracks, he's got 2 top 10s, 5 top 20s. There's some other guys here, like even Stenhouse, but starting 11th and 15th here kind of takes me out of Priest and Stenhouse range, so I'm not really into them. I've got a pretty tight core today, so I would say Suarez and Alfredo, with Suarez first, then Alfredo would be my favorite. Then going up to Newman just because he's a little bit more expensive. Those are my 3 favorite values as of right now. I might find, once I get into my 20 max builds and I start getting 10, 12 lineups done, I start looking at these value guys. I don't want to have like more than 30, 40% on any of these value guys because, there's a lot of risk involved with these guys down here, and I don't want one wreck, one engine thing, one mishap on pit road. I don't want that to ruin my whole entire day. So I want to I keep my core tight in terms of the guys here up top, and how I want to mix and match the rest of them. But then I want, say, a little less exposure down here. So the core guys that usually see in green for me are like 40 to 60%, sometimes even up to 70% exposure in my 20 max, depending on, like, Hamlin obviously could reach that 70, 60 to 70% this week. And then for my value guys, when I'm mixing and matching those other 3 or 4 spots in the lineup, 2 or 3 spots in the lineup, with these core guys, that's when I only want about 20 to 40% max exposure to these guys, unless there's someone down here that's like starting dead last. If, say, Suarez was starting dead last this week, he'd be someone I'd probably consider like 50% exposure, 40 to 50%, but that isn't the case this week. So I'm going to keep on track with my regular plan. Okay, I'm going to go back and look at some questions here. Bell or Byron? LaJoy looking today. So LaJoy, I'll cover that one first here, Bergie. LaJoy hasn't been great here outside the top 25 every single time, all 7 races. He is starting 33rd, which I like, but 25th is kind of like his upside for me. He needs 30 points. For him to get that, he needs a 23. So kind of like a 23rd, 22nd finish, and I think that's like ultimate upside for him. I see more of the floor in that 25th to 30th, which kind of makes him a little bit, irrelevant to me just because I like these other guys a little bit better. But if you think he can get maybe even up to 20th to 22nd and kind of give you that like 6X would be a 20th place finish. If you think you can get there, 6X is great from a guy at 6K. I don't think it can get there, but I wouldn't say, outright fade him because of that. He's just not on my radar today because I don't see a 20th place finish. I got him more in the 25th to 30th range. Unless my projections also come not looking at crashes or mechanical failures or speeding or mishaps on pit road. I don't really look at that or try and project those kind of things, kind of like injuries in baseball or hockey or any other stick and ball sport. So unless something crazy happens, which happens almost every single week with some of these NASCAR races, I don't see LaJoie getting there. So I'm off him. Bell or Byron? Go Bell. Okay, so Bell is one we can look at because we have only 2 races, 24th and 17th. So it was nice to see that he got better from last year's the first race where he got 24th. That's with practice and qualifying. Went into the championship race and got 17th. Starting 4th, I want no piece of him whatsoever. I mean, that changes it right there for me. He's 8,100 starting 4th. He needs 8 times 5. We need 40 out of him. For him to get that 40 points, let's just scroll back over. We need a 4th place finish. I don't see that today. I've kind of got him, with this being a tougher track. I got him outside the top 10, to be honest with you. I've got him 10th kind of as his upside, maybe even 8th, and that's not even enough for him to get there. So I've got him, let's just say I got his upside at 8th and kind of his floor maybe at like 15th. So his range for me is 8th to 15th, which takes him off the table. Byron, he is a fade for me. You could consider, if you think Bell's maybe get up front, maybe lead some laps, gets you, let's just throw in even just a simple 20 laps led, 10 fast laps here. Then we're kind of looking at, we need like a 9th place finish from, then we're okay. So if you think he leads 20 laps, 15 to 20 laps, I think he could go there in GPP. He's going to be ultra low owned. Byron going to the back off the start of the race on pace laps, keeping that 10th place starting position. I'm not risking it at all. He needs, because I don't think he's going to lead any laps, he needs a 7th place finish. I mean, he could definitely get there, but looking at his track record here, top 10s in his last 2, 17th, 24th. So I've kind of got his upside. Ultimate upside for me is kind of right around that 10th place finishing position because that's kind of the upside he showed before. And now he's starting from the rear like I said before, one of the toughest tracks to pass on. So I've got his ultimate upside at 10th, which kind of is his floor for pricing. So I don't see a lot of upside with either of those drivers today. They're both going to be super low owned, I'll tell you that right now, because you've got DeBenedetto, Bowman, Almirola, and Reddick, even Chase Briscoe down here starting 20th or outside of that, giving you a lot more place differential and a lot more upside at those prices. So both those guys are off the table for me, Ellis. Okay, Sizzle, right on. Thanks for joining. Glad you tuned in. Trying to decide between 3 different core drivers. Which core do you like the most? Hamlin, Keselowski, Bubba, Elliott, Hamlin, Ricky, or Bell, Blaney, Kez? That is tough. 3 is out for me. I don't like Bell at all. 2, I'm not on Ricky Stenhouse starting 11th. I want no piece of Ricky Stenhouse starting there. We need like 26 points from him. We need like a 14th place finish. I do not see that here from him. As you can see, he's done that once in the last 6 races and only 3 times in the last 10. So 30% is just not enough for me. So I don't like that one. So just, I guess by default, I like number 1. I'm not big on Bubba, but he's starting 25th. He's got back-to-back top 20 finishes here, and he's in better equipment now. So I would go number 1 for you, Kay. Any outright bets? Yeah, I'm going to jump into outrights here in about 2 minutes. I'm just going to scroll back and see if I missed any of these questions. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Liz. Would you consider Blaney as a part of your core today? He's not a part of my core at the moment. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Hamlin and Truex, but you can easily pair Blaney with those 2. He's starting 8th, and he's done better than that finishing in 3 of his last 4. Rex in, 2 of his last 5, and I believe, let's just go look at those ones there where he was in the wreck and look at those average running positions. That's something I really like to nail down. It gives you a lot more context when you start looking at, okay, this guy finished 37th and wrecked in this race. You want to know how he did before he wrecked? Go look at the average run position. So we've got, if I would spell Blaney right, we'd be able to find him. Happy Sunday, everyone. Okay. He started 5th last year, average running position of 31st. Let's go look at the total laps now. Total laps 65. So the reason the average running position is down is because he did not run a whole lot of laps before he got in that wreck. But he was starting 5th. That was with practice as well. So he had a fast car. So that was good to see there. We'll go look at this other wreck here. He started 4th that year. He had an average running position of 11th. Laps 133. So that is awesome to, 237 out of the 316. So the fact that he's still got an average running position of 11th with that, he was out a little bit earlier. He has been fast at this track even when he's been out. So Blaney can definitely be a core play. He wasn't on my initial list because I went down to Almirola just because of that. So the fact that Almirola starting 32nd, I think, can push down that ownership of Blaney. I'm really starting to like Blaney a little bit more. I think you can go, and I'm going to just punch it in right now. Instead of going Almirola, I'm going to punch in Blaney with Truex and Hamlin, 6,900 core. So then you can come down here. I like Suarez, 5,900. You punch him in there. You've got a 7,400 average up. Then you can go a bunch of different ways. You can get Bubba Wallace in here. I like Kurt Busch here as well. He's someone we haven't talked about. He's starting 12th. I think his ownership's going to be fair. I don't think it's going to be very high at all just because of these place differential guys around him. And look at his track record here. He's finished where he starts in 4 straight, 5 of his last 6, and 7 of his last 10. Top 10s in 5 of those. Top 10s in 3 of his last 6. So there's just a lot of like here about Kurt Busch if he's going to be low owned or lower owned. And he needs less than 40 points to hit his floor. 7,700 is a great place for Kurt Busch. Like I said, so 7,700. Let's get the exact points here. I can't do the math off the top of my head. 38.5 points we need out of him. So that's kind of right in that 9th place. If he gets any fast laps at all, let's just say he gets 5 fast laps. We need 38.5. We need a top 10 out of Kurt Busch today. That's pretty much the way I look at it. Absolutely love it. I think it can happen. I think people will be scared away because he's starting 12th with guys starting out, littered around him starting outside the top 20. So I definitely on Kurt Busch a lot more than some of those other guys here. Hey, Mark. Thanks for joining in. Happy Sunday. Happy race day, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We got 40 people watching right now. Absolutely appreciate that. If I could get you guys just to go down, smash that like button. I really appreciate it. It really helps, like I said, the YouTube algorithm. I've been doing a lot of searching on that, trying to expand this channel, getting this show to go out a little bit more. And every single like, every comment, every interaction helps out so much. I really appreciate it. And if you guys got other friends that play DFS, you want to share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, in any of your free chats, any of your paid chats, anything, any chats you guys are in, anyone that maybe be interested in talking some NASCAR, tune in. I'm going to be doing this show every single week on Sunday. Now that the time's changed, I'm going to have to get back to you on the exact time once I figure that all out. It's been a heck of a day for anyone that's just tuning in. I forgot about the time change for almost everyone in the entire world except for Saskatchewan and even Phoenix. Arizona, I don't believe changes because I had this exact same problem sitting in my Airbnb last year. Newman or Cole Custer. Okay. Talked about Newman starting 19th. I definitely like that. Cole Custer, let's look at how he has done here. 9th, 28th last year. And I want to just quickly go over to the Phoenix track history, look at Custer. So he started 15th, finished 28th. So average run position was a lot better than that finishing position by 9 spots. So that gives me, that makes me feel better. I forget exactly what happened here, but he had 18 fast laps in that 41 car. So, I mean, that tells me right there, you look at the overall fast laps, that is the 5th most fast laps out of any car at this race for the championship race last year. That I really like to see that. So Cole Custer, definitely got top 10 upside, and going to the matrix and looking at Cole Custer specifically, if he's got top 10 upside, that's 48 points at 6,700 if he gets a top 10. That is incredible. So I'm just going to give you that here. Gotta have this calculator in front of me. It was just huge. 7x. If he gets 10th place with no fast laps, no laps led, that is 7.2x return, everybody. Absolutely love that for upside instead of Newman. So it is Custer for me. Thanks for asking that question. Really appreciate it. Huge. That moves Custer up a little bit for me. So this is another reason why I love doing these live shows. One, I love doing it with Dane because he always has a few guys that I don't think about that end up doing good, guys that I kind of rule out in my own models that he doesn't. And then you guys and gals. I always just say guys, that's the way I say it. But you guys and gals that join each and every Sunday is absolutely amazing because you ask these questions that make me dig in a little bit more into all of the data for that driver, comparing driver A versus driver B in the matrix, looking at, not just track history, season form, looking at car history. So these questions that you guys bring not only maybe help others who aren't asking questions, because what you're asking, a lot of people will ask. And it's also something that maybe I have not thought about yet this week. So that's one of them right there. Really appreciate you guys asking all these questions because it really helps the show, gives me something to keep talking about on here. Because eventually I would probably, maybe not run out of things to talk about. I love NASCAR. But yeah, so Custer over Newman there, scrolling down here. Love the show. Appreciate it, Michael. Appreciate all you guys again. Kenny, Eric Jones, 7K, starting 14th. Oh, Eric Jones jumping down. His track record isn't great here. He's got upside. He's showing upside. That is also in the 20 car as well as that, I believe it was the 77 car. Like when Truex was in the 78, they put Jones in the 77, another satellite car that year. So he's got some experience in that. But this year he's in the 43. Bubba last year was top 20 in that car. I would put them in about the same, driver talent. So I kind of see the same thing, 15th to 20th place finish as his upside, 15th like max, I think. So let's go look at that here. A 15th place finish for him is only 27 points. We need 35. So Eric Jones, where he's starting, I need an 11th place finish with no fast laps or laps led, which I don't think he gets. I don't see Eric Jones, unless something crazy happens, getting a 11th place finish. I've got him, like I said, in 15th to 20th range, closer to that 20th range. That gives him 27 to 17 points. I just can't do it, Kenny. I just can't do it. Definitely Custer bump. Custer is now becoming my favorite value play because of you guys, because of Ellis. Great question, buddy. Thank you. But yeah, I still like Newman. I just don't think the upside as much, and I still like Suarez and Alfredo. Alfredo because of the ownership, and I see a 20th out of him, and I think that gives him nice upside at this price and a pivot off of Suarez. So those are kind of four really good values that I like. Chastain starting 20th. Bubba, I talked about a little bit more GPP for me. I still don't know exactly what we're going to see out of him long term out of this car altogether. So it's kind of a wait and see for me from him. But starting 25th, I can see a 20th place finish out of him. He showed that in lesser equipment here last year. So I would think, even his upside would be 15th for me for Bubba, and that's 38 points here. 5X is right around here. 17th, 18th is kind of what we need out of him. So I'm on board with that 100% with Bubba as a GPP play here. Briscoe, I'm kind of getting away from him because I talked about Kurt Busch. Eric Jones, away from him. So these are some guys that I'll be fading in my own personal player pool just because I like other guys in those ranges a lot more. Talked about LaJoie a little bit earlier, Michael. I'm not going to talk anyone off of him. I just like Suarez and Alfredo, Custer a little bit more. I know he's starting 33rd, and I think that's going to garner some ownership from people. But honestly, with his what he has done here, he was a crash last year, but generally we're looking at like a 25th to 30th from him. And even starting 33rd, if we scroll over and we look at a 25th to 30th from him, that's 15 to 25 points. We need 30 out of him. We need a 22nd, 23rd place finish out of LaJoie. I just think that's like his top end finish in a perfect scenario where there's he doesn't get caught up in a wreck, or some of the drivers and 5-10 of the drivers in front of him don't get caught up in a wreck, that sort of thing. That has to happen for him to hit his top upside. I don't see that this week, so LaJoie not for me. So getting close to wrapping it up here. 49 minutes. There you go, honey. If you're watching, I once again exceeded my 35 to 40 minute target tag. Even the 45 minute, I'm over that one. So we're looking at about probably another 5 to 8 minutes realistically here. So fire your questions off if you have anything else, anything on the sheet that you maybe don't understand, or how I use it, how you use it. Just throw some ideas, things that maybe you want to see on the sheet, things I can add. I'm trying to add things to all my sheets. I do about, I don't know, I want to say 10 plus sports. And, like for NASCAR, I do trucks, Xfinity, Cup. For PGA, I do Showdown. So altogether, there's probably about 13 to 15 different sheets. I try and add things to each and every sheet all the time. I'm going to talk about prize picks here as well. I'm going to talk about my bets. Ryan Newman asked about that. I'm not betting on Ryan Newman today. I don't see him winning the race. But looking at cool bets specifically, it's a little bit different than the odds that you're going to see on the sheet. Very, very close in terms of order. I pull it from Bet365 because it gives me more drivers versus a lot of other sites give you like 10 to 15 drivers and then just give you like the field, which kind of screws up the model a little bit because I'd like to fit odds into that model. But some guys that I definitely like here. We've got Elliott as a favorite at 6-1, Harvick 6.5. I don't like Harvick at 6.5 for reasons I talked about before. He's been great here, but he could do it, but I just don't like those odds. If he was in the 8 to 10-1, maybe. Hamlin 7-1 is someone I'm jumping on, kind of on that high end. Someone else I like, Logano. He is down at 8.5-1 for me on my book, 9-1 here, so very close there. I like both of those at those ranges, and then maybe some deeper guys. I talked about Ryan Blaney, 15-1. I think that's a great number for Blaney, who, like I said, if we look at the sheet here, you want to come tell everyone your favorite pick today? No? You're running away. She tells me every single week that she's going to come on and wants to do a NASCAR show with me. I say, hey, I'm doing a live show every Sunday. So she's been out here eating her breakfast and watching her iPad all morning. And I ask her if she wants to come, and she just runs away. But, oh, we got a dog barking. See if someone can come open the door and let him in. So, Kason, can you come let the dog in? Thanks, honey. And then come tell us your pick. Everyone is dying to hear your pick today. Nope, that's a big no. So at the top, Logano, Denny Hamlin 7-1, Logano 8.5-1, and then going a little bit deeper, I like Blaney at 15-1. If you want to get real risky, like the long shots a little bit more. Kurt Busch at 26-1 stands out a little bit, but other than that, I'm not. Those are the four that I'm looking at for outrights today. I'm probably because if we go Denny Hamlin and we say we bet $10 on each one, 7-1, that gives us $70. So I like to make sure that at least if my highest odds that I'm betting on, I do this in golf as well, the highest odds if it wins. So I would be betting $10 per driver, or even say $10 on Hamlin, $10 on Logano, $10 on Blaney, and then let's just say on the long shot, $5 on Kurt. So I'm in for $35. So I want to make sure that I'm at least, doubling my money if one of those drivers wins. So right there, we got Denny Hamlin 7-1, $10 gives us 70. That is exactly double if he wins the race. So that's kind of the way I set it up. On this site, unfortunately, I know Dane bets a lot on DK Sportsbook, and I know he doesn't do FanDuel, but I know a lot of people do FanDuel Sportsbook as well. I really like it. I can't on there from Canada, but I've seen some of the odds. I love the top 5 bets, top 10s, and pairing some of the odds and stuff like that. So definitely check that out as well. But those are some of the drivers I'm targeting in the betting market. Prize picks today. You can go over to the sheet here, and on the bottom, you can pick the prize picks scoring tab. So you can check that out. Some guys that I definitely like here. Logano 33.5 means he needs a 7th place or better. So I like that as an over for him. You could go Kyle Busch. A little bit risky. I'd probably wait and add him to like a 3rd or 4th pick for a flex play. Blaney at 31.5, that's awesome for him. That's a 9th place or better for him. So those are my 2 favorite. Kurt Busch at 29.5, that gives him like an 11th place or better. If we go look at Kurt Busch here, just everything's just giving me Kurt Busch just showing up everywhere. He's gotten 11th or better in 4 of his last 6, 12th in that one. So he would have just missed at his prize picks there. So I definitely like Kurt Busch at that low number as well. So there's 3 that I like for prize picks as well. All right, I'm going to check the final questions here. They are rolling out. Any favorite top 10 5 bets for today? It depends on the odds, to be honest. I don't see any of them. I don't have the DK Sportsbook up. I kind of have to look at what Dane shares with me because I can't get into DK Sportsbook from Canada. Ryan Blaney, I would think, would have some nice top 5 odds. I definitely like that. I would check out Kurt Busch, I bet, because his odds are a little bit deeper in terms of outright win. I think his top 5-10 would be pretty good numbers there. If you grab, say, like a Cole Custer top 10, that's probably going to be a long shot number. Probably wouldn't mind that. We talked about him a little bit. So those are some in terms of that market. You give us a core here. I don't. My cores are in the RotoPros Slack chat. They're in the DFSR Slack chat, or in the Slack chat, in the DFSR chat on the site, as well as my Patreon Slack chat. I give out 2 cores. I'm going to have 2 GPP cores. I play 20 max, so I'm going to give you my 2 main cores today. They're going to be 3 driver cores. I talked about all the drivers on here, talked about all the ones that I'm going to fill in with, and pretty much give you my whole player pool throughout the show here. But the actual cores that I will share with you will be RotoPros, DFSR, as well as my Patreon. You can grab a free trial at RotoPros, 3 or 7 day trial over there. Grab a 7-day trial over at DFSR.com, and then it's $15 a month after that for DFSR as well as RotoPros. For DFSR, that only gets you the chat as well as my sheets and basic stats for $29.95 a month. Over at DFSR, you get optimizers for PGA, NHL, NBA, MLB, and NFL. We don't have any for NASCAR yet, but that might be something we look into in the future. But you definitely get my cheat sheet and my cores there that I'm going to be sharing in chat as well. And then my Patreon, $5 a month per sport, or $10 a month gets you all sports. All you Canadians out there, that's $7 Canadian, $13.50 for all sports. So keep that in mind. I don't know exactly how much Bitcoin that is. It's kind of going up and down right now. So I'm going to get that for you in the future. We're going to talk US dollar, Canadian, and Bitcoin. Maybe in the future I'll be able to allow you guys to pay with Bitcoin. I'll take all your Bitcoin if you're selling it, because I am stacking sats. Anyways, what do we got here? Any other final questions? Oh, Deidre joined the show even. Kaysen's favorite is Elliot. Yep. She wouldn't come on here. Yeah, younger daughter. My oldest daughter is still sleeping because she was out a little bit later last night. But she likes Kyle Busch with me, and she never gets as down as me in terms of Kyle Busch. Like, I'm a little bit down on Kyle Busch right now until he wins here. That's been a little bit disappointing. Could come today, and I haven't talked about him a whole lot. That kind of steers me in a direction of I think he could be a good GPP play. Going based off of some of the ownership projections, as I think Logano with his track record, Kozlowski starting first, I think people will go there for Dominator. Denny Hamlin, like I talked about, Martin Truex Jr. I think Kyle Busch maybe a little bit lower owned. So maybe I'll be going that way. Kenny, that is great. Thanks, bud. That's like 2 sats. That's great. So Kyle Busch could be a little bit lower owned today, but yeah, that's my oldest daughter's favorite, and my youngest is Chase Elliott. Absolutely loves Chase Elliott. Every time he gets into the lead or his car comes on TV, she's jumping up and down. So maybe next week I can coax her into coming and sitting here and talking about her pick, which probably most likely not going off of practice, not going off qualifying, not going off anything, but it will be Chase Elliott, her favorite pick, again next week to win the race. Yes, there's Mrs. Durrell. She joined the chat. She's usually not. Well, I don't want to say she's sleeping in because the show has been a little bit later, and it's a little bit later, even more today. But generally, doesn't join in and interact. So I'm going to try and maybe get her on one of these shows too, and she can talk about her favorite driver, who I am fading. So I'm probably getting in trouble here again this week. But anyways, I'm going to wrap things up here. Again, check out my content. Grab a copy of the cheat sheet and my core over at rotopros.com, over at dfsr.com, over at patreon.com/jagerbombs. Thanks for joining. Like and subscribe. Really appreciate all of you. The show will be back again next week. Again, I'm going to try and do a preview show going over a little bit about some of the things I look at building my cores with the stats in the sheet, just to kind of, and then maybe put in some like timestamps to kind of, because I know there's some people out there asking me in the chats throughout the week how I use the sheet. I'm going to add some more data on here as well. So if you guys have any ideas of things I can add to the sheet to help you with prize picks, to help you with betting, to help you with anything at all, DFS, NASCAR, any sport that I cover, definitely hit me up over on Twitter as well at Jaeger_bombs9. Thank you, everyone. Happy race day. Let's go get some green screens.